Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here. And if my face being illuminated in this manner is anything to go by, there's some spooky doings are transpiring. But before we do, let's turn some lights on, because I'm not going to hold this the entire time. Igor, please. Oh, that's enormously better, I hope you agree, because yes, today we are going to be looking at some games that were unintentionally kind of absolutely terrifying, made by Nintendo or were an exclusive on a Nintendo system at the time, because I wanted to include some that weren't. On Nintendo platforms, you've got your games like your Luigi's Mansion, you've got Majora's Mask, you've got Zombie U, you've got your Billy Hatchers, all intended in some way to be at least a little bit frightening or have a horror theme. However, we're looking at games that had no intention of being horror games, and yet were quite frightening to a young little me, because yes, all of the games featured in this list and all the things mentioned are things that personally terrified me when I was younger, so there's no doubt stuff that you grew up with that terrified you that won't be included on here, because this is all about me, baby. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling, let's dive right into things. Alright, let's get this one out of the way, because I couldn't create this list without including it because it ticks all the right boxes. Yeah, this thing. How could I not include this? I mean, it's one of the most classic examples that anyone's gonna think of when they think of scary things in non-scary games. And yeah, it's absolutely terrifying. Like, even today, I would say that even an adult who's never played Super Mario 64 before goes in, gets to Big Boo's horn, thinks, oh, it's a Mario game, boos and ghost houses. Yeah, we've seen it 100 times before. It's just got a horror theme. It's not actually frightening. And then this bugger comes out of nowhere and tries to eat you. It's genuinely quite frightening. The red and white on black, the noise it makes, it's just out now. It is a frightening experience. However, the reason I'm getting it out of the way is because not only has everyone already heard of it, but also it was kind of intended to be scary and is not really in the spirit of this video, personally, but how could I not? Come on. Also, this is the only one on this list that I genuinely remember having nightmares about. It was that frightening to me as a little babbykин. And you might be thinking, Alex, that's not scary. Well, guess what? I was a little babbykkin. It was scary. It's still kind of scary. This next one is a bit unusual because I was actually frightened by it when I was quite a bit older, sort of early teens or something like that. And I'm really not sure why. Of course, I'm talking about Donkey Kong Country, but not really the game. I'm talking about, well, this. Something about this screen. I mean, there's always sort of implications where you're already in kind of a bad mood when you've lost all your lives. You know, you're kind of disappointed in yourself and kind of angry that the game beat you. And then it sort of rubs salt into the wound by showing you this image where DK and Diddy look like they've been beaten to within an inch of their life. And you just kind of, I mean, if this was higher rated, you can imagine they'd be bleeding and stuff like that. It's just not a nice image to look at. And I think I was just playing it late at night, it was dark, quiet, headphones on, and all of a sudden, this flashes up in front of my eyeballs. You bet your gravy I was not happy. We're going back to the Mario this time, and I actually found out that this is quite a common one. This isn't exclusive to me. What a treat. What an absolute bloody treat. I am, of course, referring to the face that Mario pulls when he loses a life in Super Mario AllStars. For most people, it's Super Mario Bros. 3, but I never had a NES. This is a... Why did they decide to go with this face? I mean, I get it. I understand that most of the black sort of pixels around here, they are his moustache, and that's okay. And he's actually going, oh, he's surprised. He's sort of, oh, I died. That's a bad thing. But what it actually looks like is he's staring at you with this twisted smile, with this big nose and like a clown-like face that's stretched out as if to sort of say, hee, you killed me.
Now I get to die.
Well, that's how I read it anyway. Good God, we're finally moving away from something that's actively directly related to Mario. We're now talking about Banjo Kazooie, and Banjo Kazooie has Mad Monster Mansion, as I'm sure anyone who's played Banjo Kazooie knows. This has nothing to do with Mad Monster Mansion. You're playing the game, you're a happy-go-lucky bear, there's sort of it's sort of a childishness, a sort of a humor about it as well that's not so childish, although kind of childish at the same time. You're enjoying yourself, it's Banjo Kazooie, it's fun, it's bright, it's colourful, and then you just want to end the game and you're like, well, I'm a child, I have to tell it I want to end the game, I can't just turn it off. That's bad for the console. That's what happens when you grow up with Windows 95. So you go into the menu, you go down to save and quit, because you want to save, you can't just turn the system off, and it says, are you sure? And you're like, yeah. And it goes, okay, and then Gruntilda starts cackling, and something's off. You're then presented with the game over screen, even though you just wanted to put the game down for a little bit and come back to it the next day, and yet it shows you Tooty being transformed into this hideous, grotesque, sort of lumbering version of herself because you failed, because you wanted to turn the console off, because you had to go and have your tea. Oh, it was not a good. It just really didn't sit well with me as a child, and I would even I would save and quit, say, are you sure? Yes, I'd go, okay, and I thought it was saving when it had the Gruntilda sort of, the sort of iris thing, so as soon as that was over, I dash over and I turn the N64 off because I didn't want to see it. I was that genuinely scared of it. It was kind of sad, but yeah, that's how it was. And every time I hear that music still, there's just a little bit of something at the back of my head that goes, oh, don't do it. This is the one that I think genuinely affected me the most, or at least it's the one that I remember most clearly, having the most impact on me. Banshee Boardwalk in Mario Kart 64. In doing my research, I saw a lot of people online saying that they didn't like Banshee Boardwalk for one reason or another, and it was usually something to do with the building or the bats flying at them. They just didn't like that. But no, it was nothing like that for me. It wasn't the dark water or anything like that, or the music, although the music didn't help because it sounded like a rattlesnake and, I don't know, tickled something primitive in my brain. But then you're driving around on Banshee Boardwalk and all of a sudden these intangible boos appear that not only they do nothing to you obviously, but they cackle and their mouths are enormous. They look more like real boos. They don't look like the sort of goofy things from Super Mario 64. They are actually quite frightening and you couldn't do anything about them, and it's like they were sort of circling around you as though you were cursed or something, and I really did not like them. It reached the point where if I was playing Mario Kart 64 with my brother and or dad, I would actively ask that we don't go on Banshee Boardwalk. That's how much it affected me. I was very, very young at the time, like probably about 6, 7, 8, something like that. So understandably, I was frightened of this. And I was like, I don't want this. And my father and my brother, being the caring people that they are, said, shut up, and we played it anyway. Eventually, I think when I got a year older or something, I was just like, let's just play it, and it was fine. And then I got on with my life. But for a long time, that was something that actively terrified me, and I just didn't want to happen. Banjo-Tooie is one of the few games I actually remember as a child running appallingly, and it does run appallingly on original hardware. But regardless of that, that's nothing to do with what I'm talking about today. Instead, we're talking about what happens to poor old King Jingling. So you got the King of the Jinjos, he's a happy-go-lucky chappy, he's kind of royalty, and he's like, That's what he does, that's his entire arc. And then Gruntilda's evil witches want to suck the life out of Banjo to try and stop him. They know he's in King Jingling's place, they shoot him with some sort of life suck beam, Banjo narrowly escapes, but then the end result is you've got this. And I think it was just given how bright and cheerful the game was beforehand, and I was sort of maybe about 10 at this point when I played this game, but it scared the living daylights out of me, and it I suppose made me more than anything mournful, which is a really weird emotion to experience for a child. You know, there was this character, he was happy, he was willing to help you, he was fun, he was sort of yee-hee, and he was also so unwittingly, so unobservant. He didn't know what was going on, and yet he had the literal life sucked out of him to make him this grey husk, and his pet was just a pair of eyes. I didn't have any nightmares about this one, and yeah, looking back on it, it's kind of ridiculous. It's goofy, it's fun, but when you're a child, no, it's not. No, it's not. Whilst the piano was obviously intended to be frightening and was kind of like, you know, sort of, oh, it's a spooky mansion and a piano coming to life with big sharp teeth. Yes, very frightening. The eel wasn't intended to be frightening, or at least I'm pretty damn sure it wasn't. And yet the first mission you're required to do in Jolly Rogers Bay is Jolly Rogers Lagoon? Is you dive down through this huge expanse of water, which I'm not great with either, to be brutally honest. Even today, large bodies of water, I'm not keen. And so you swim all the way down, and when you're younger and you don't know about doing perfect swimming and getting the timing just right, you're kind of flummoxing your way through and you're scared, you're running out of air, and then you've got to go down and it's like, hey, you want to go in that thing there, okay? Yeah, brilliant, sure. And then there's a massive eel there. It's kind of unsettling, but you sort of think, okay, I don't know what to do, I'm gonna go up and get some air. And by the time you go back down, he's gone, he's just sort of swimming around, you sort of think, okay, that's fine. You do the mission, it's all good, it's all gravy, you get the star. And then, the next mission is, can the eel come out to play? And he does this when you see him. The unblinking stare, the massive rows of teeth, the fact that he's so much bigger than Mario, and the fact that you've got to try and coax him out. Can he come out to play this eldritch horror? I don't want him to. This last one does come with a rather large asterisk, because whilst it certainly had an enormous effect on me, I wouldn't say it was personally scary, but it did make me not want to have that happen ever again. I'm talking about Pikmin, the very first Pikmin, when I don't know what happened in the second one, and I know what happened in the third one. It generally wasn't quite as frightening as the first one. The first one had this very sort of overarching, foreboding feel about it, because you've landed on this planet. You've got to get out in 30 days, mate. And sometimes when you're a rubbish child, like I was, you wouldn't even find a single part in one day, and that was horrible. But you know what's worse? When you accidentally leave a Pikmin at the end of the day, and it gets eaten. And then you hear the horrible music. It's just the fact that you're flying off and all the onions and everything are flying off and this Pikmin's just like, wait for me, and you sort of think, oh no, and then it actually dies, it gets eaten. This creature that you forgot about, it's dead now, not because it fell in battle or anything like that, but just because you were negligent. You forgot about a Pikmin, you've got to go and get him. I've got to say, it was very effective though. I went back and found every single bloody Pikmin every single time I possibly could. And that countdown when you're running out of time at the end of the day and you're running around trying to find this last Pikmin. And then you'd see that you left one behind and it was properly gutting. Like with Banjo-Tooie and King Jingling, I felt properly mournful. I felt like I had done something wrong and something had died, and you know, I didn't have that disconnect between real life and video games back then. Still kind of don't. For me at the time, it was also kind of a revelation. It was the most emotion I'd actually felt when playing a game. And yeah, I would think I was scared by other things more, like Banshee Boardwalk. Those things scared the hell out of me. But it wasn't just fear here. It was fear and dread. Dread is incredibly potent. And then mourning. It was a really big thing in my life, actually, now that I think about it. Which is kind of sad. And there you have it. That's a load of Nintendo games that were frightening when they weren't meant to be frightening. Did you get scared by anything relatively innocuous when you were a child in a video game? Let us know down there in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then why don't you get a complex about clicking that subscribe button, and be sure to check out NintendoLife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo-related content. Thank you again for watching. Bye-bye. Ha ha ha!